Muffin! Hi, I'm Chris Marland.
And I'm Matt Hancock, and welcome to Playing Devil's Advocate,
The show where we look at movies and ask, how bad was it really?
There's no doubt that both Alien and Aliens are up there with the original Star Wars trilogy in the best science fiction films ever to be created. The film Alien by director Ridley Scott was released in 1979, following Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley as she fought off an alien creature on board a drifting spaceship. A member of the crew was impregnated by a creature known as a facehugger, who unknowingly brings the creature on board and is killed after it bursts through his chest and escapes, before growing to full size and hunting the remaining crew.
In 1986, James Cameron released Aliens, which followed Ripley after she blew up the ship to kill the alien and was found floating adrift in space. However, she finds out that the alien planet has been colonized and heads back with a squad of Marines to end the threat of the creatures once and for all.
So we have one of the most influential horror films of all time, and a sequel that is considered superior. So naturally there was a lot of hype for a third installment. Enter David Fincher in his first directorial role. Unfortunately for the newcomer, he entered a project already in pre-production with constant interference in the studio and a script he had to rewrite as he went along.
And even after all that, the studio released a final product that didn't represent his vision and a trailer that had nothing to do with the movie at all, to the point of insinuating it would take place on Earth. He even refused to be involved in the 2003 re-release.
The film is considered an inferior sequel, but how bad is it really?
Let's take a fair look and judge for ourselves. We open to the familiar alien credits in space, intercut with scenes from inside the ship, where a facehugger manages to cause the ship to eject the cryopods, which falls towards a nearby planet.
It's actually a pretty good sequence. It takes the established opening and mixes it up a little bit. The cutting is fast, getting faster and faster to increase the tension. I do have to worry about the egg though. In the finale to the previous film, the alien queen hides onto the dropship to get aboard the marine frigate. But I have to wonder, did she just crap out those eggs and stick them like limpets to the hull of the craft? Because she wasn't carrying them when she was chasing Ripley. We cut to a meeting between the warden and inmates, where apparently Agent 47 is present.
The residents of the prison planet, known as Fiorina, Fury 161, have chosen to stay behind after the prison was closed, adopting their own religion. The idea of the inmates who form their own religion is a cool idea. It gives them a sense of personality outside of crazed killer, as well as explaining why they don't just gut Ripley straight away.
It's also good because they're very different to the ensemble from the first two Alien films. The first movie focused on a crew of a frigate, while the second included Marines who were experienced in combat, and now we have an ensemble who are deadly convicts. I believe it adds something to the whole Alien universe, and it shows that even though these characters aren't that well developed, the writers were still trying to do something new that distanced it from the first two films.
I do love the warden in this film. The main reason for that is because the actor Brian Glover seems to be enjoying playing this role. You can tell he's really trying to create some personality and mannerisms for this character, and to be fair, he succeeds pretty well. I find him to be one of the most interesting characters to watch on screen. Yes, he's not very threatening, but I don't think he was intended to be.
Ripley awakens in the infirmary, where Dr. Jonathan Clement, played by Charles Dance, informs that the rest of the crew, Hicks, the last Marine of the squad that accompanied Ripley to the alien planet, and Newt, a child that was found on a deserted colony, did not survive the crash. It's sad because they were both very likeable characters, but at least their deaths were given a lot of weight. Plus, it puts Ripley in a more isolated situation, thus making her seem more vulnerable.
To this date, the fact that these characters were killed upsets a majority of fans, and even though it seems a little insulting given these interesting characters an off-screen death, it still sets the tone of the film nicely. I find Alien 3 to be the darkest in the series. Killing off these characters shows it. It tells the audience that anyone could die in this movie, even the ones you grow fond of.
Discovering evidence of the aliens in the escape pod they landed in, Ripley asks for an autopsy for Newt. Weaver seems very believable in this scene. He actually seems distressed by Newt's autopsy, at the same time knows that it's necessary, showing that she doesn't let emotions get in the way of her mission to wipe the species out, but not so much that she becomes totally devoid of emotion. The autopsy reveals nothing to worry about, but Ripley asks that the bodies be burnt regardless, just to be sure. The funeral and the alien birth are well intercut with the eulogy of the prison's spiritual leader, Dylan, talking about death and new life.
I really like this scene. It's a rare moment in the Alien franchise where we see Ripley's emotional side. In the Aliens, her relationship with Newt developed well in Aliens, and this funeral scene gives that impression that Ripley feels she has lost another daughter, as well as knowing she has failed to protect her.
It was like the character Dylan acts like a spiritual guide to his brothers. The scene shows that he treats even the death of people he doesn't met with a certain amount of dignity and respect. But rapist and murderer is not such a bad guy.
I really love Dylan's little speech in this scene. It's a good way of introducing him to the audience, and also his speech can reflect on the events that occur later on in the film.
Are we expected to believe that the full-grown alien fit inside that dog? It's bigger than the damn thing. You could have just stuck with a chest burster, guys.
After adopting the Sinead O'Connor look, Ripley heads out to have lunch with the convicts. Wait, what?
I'm sorry, but what is Ripley doing? These are convicted rapists and murderers, and your only defense is a doughy guy, his sidekick, and a surgeon? And they aren't around! I mean, come on, there's a fine line between showing your dominance and throwing common sense to the fucking wind. I do love Dylan's reaction in this scene. He's clearly holding back and is disturbed by her presence. It's like she was sent to test his faith.
Now waiting for pickup from the corporation, Ripley and Clemens get to know each other a little. But it's getting a little boring. How about a death scene? There we go.
Oh my god, Clemens was a hitman all along! Called it. Ripley goes to find Bishop's remains and...
Really?
She's still tempting the maniacs! Before you went to thank Dylan for his eulogy, I'll grant you that much, but this seems a little bit out of character. Ripley was strong, sure, but she didn't intentionally go around provoking the aliens. Well, apart from the rescue at the climax of the last movie, but that's besides the point! She's a survivor because she was strong-willed and was smart under pressure. She doesn't have to prove it by smacking her ass in the face of self-confessed murderers. This idiocy seems really out of character. Oh hey, look at that! It's almost as if walking around a prison full of psychopaths without an escort was a really stupid idea!
Hey, she's fought off aliens. I'm sure she can handle these guys. Or maybe not. Wait, does he usually use sport goggles when he rapes someone? Does anyone else see the comparison here?
That's not what they mean by using protection, dude.
Maybe on their planet they do it differently. The music included for this scene sounds like a sinister WWE wrestler's introduction music. The rapist does pose like a wrestler before he begins the rape scene.
But it's Baldy McPrieststab to the rescue. While Dylan is giving into his violent nature here, it's gratifying to see him defending Ripley to uphold his beliefs and show his brothers the error of their ways. By beating them senseless.
Take off. I gotta re-educate some of the brothers.
I'm sorry, but those lines he just said makes him sound like he's in a blaxploitation film in space. It could work.
Take off. I gotta re-educate some of the brothers.
But enough of these three-dimensional characters. Here's some shits we don't care about. And here's one of the major flaws of the film. These characters really aren't well developed, or even named. In the previous films, we got to see these characters and know them before they were killed off. Even the Marines, even though we didn't know all of them, we still knew enough to care when they got the axe. Here it's just meat for the grinder.
A lot of them have that arsehole personality about them, and even though aliens included complete jackasses, at least they balanced it well with other characters who were serious about the mission. Also, those characters had development. Another thing, you can't tell who is who for the majority of the cast. When one dies, you feel like saying, which one is he again? But we'll come to that later.
If they had to bring back anyone from the last film, thank God it was the most likable androids in the galaxy and not an insulting retcon. The stakes do feel very different in this film. Sure, there's only one alien again, but there's also no weapons or real defense. On top of that, Ripley's stuck with characters who she doesn't know she can trust, or they're likely to kill her themselves. It forces new ways of thinking to defeat the aliens and puts Ripley in a much more dangerous situation when you consider that she's now unarmed with no real allies. And Clemens dies just as we're getting to know him. This proves that Fincher understood that we need to care about someone for their death to have impact, but not enough to apply the same logic to the rest of the buffet.
This is again proving the point that anyone could die in this movie. Even the ones you grow to like. Even though I like this character, I knew his death was coming. The increasing speed of dialogue is a giveaway, the music is a giveaway, and most of all, we knew the alien went up the air vents. And what is he standing under? Yup, you got it. But really, I don't think his death was meant to be a big shock to the audiences, as they grew to dislike the character.
And another named character is killed off. That leaves us with 4 we've named, 3 with personalities, and a whole bunch of alien chow.
Okay, There are too many unknown characters in this movie. They all look the same as well. It's like having Vin Diesel, Jason Statham, and Bruce Willis being in the same film, but their backs face to the audience all the way through it. You just couldn't tell who is who.
Now let's be fair, the backs of all three of those guys would have way more personality than these characters.
Hold on a second. There's an alien loose that could appear any second, and instead of planning to kill it, you're having a discussion on who should be the leader?
Well, the removal of the superintendent does create chaos among the inmates, leaving Ripley to lead the charge, again putting her in a role where she's strong and in control as everyone else falls apart around her. It's easy to forget that it's the same woman who earlier was attacked due to her inability to understand that she was in a fucking all-male prison.
We finally start to see a fragment of personality from Aaron. We learn that he is nicknamed 85 from the rest of his inmates, mocking his IQ. This brief scene shows he isn't the brightest, which is seen with Ripley mockingly outsmarting him.
Oh hey, it's Pete Puffleplate.
Watching Puffleplate's first proper scene in this film now seems quite odd, as it feels he randomly appeared out of nowhere and joined the team in killing the creature. Back in 1992 though, he wasn't as well known and had small roles in films, so I can see why his role isn't established as much.
The alien. The team plans the next move, as we are introduced to Moss. It's nice to give this guy a name, but how about a personality that isn't the same as everyone else? Trying to trap the alien in the furnace, our heroes attempt to lure the beast, while being chased by the Evil Dead monster and crappy effects. You know, we don't need to see these crappy effects. The previous films did fine by keeping the monster in the shadows and out of sight, making them more frightening as a result.
I find the less you see of the monster, the more frightening it is. In the same way the tension was built in Jaws when you didn't see the shark. You knew it was present, but you didn't know when it was about to appear. Here there's no tension.
Oh, my favorite character after Bishop dies, sacrificing himself to save the others.
Ah, the black guy sacrificing himself. You saw it coming.
Again, why we couldn't give a shit about the other inmates escapes me. The alien survives, but Ripley hits the sprinklers and causes the alien to explode as it rapidly cools. Bishop!
Just want to take it back.
I'm gonna kill it and take you home.
Shit.
You're wrong. We want to help.
You can totally trust me and my space Nazi from Killzone. Okay, so Aaron finally does something. But how about something that advances the plot? Oh, wait, he's dead.
But he goes back to being the useless coward he was at the beginning. He out of nowhere does something heroic, but then 10 seconds later he's dead. I find it also peculiar that Morse, who was basically playing the hateful arsehole in the film, actually survives. There are moments in the film where he seems to confront his death, but he is spared. It's really going against the conventions of sci-fi, but I believe Fincher purposely did that to once again trick the audience.
I would describe it as an undeveloped character, but that's beside the point. This is a great scene to end the franchise. Ripley's sacrificing herself to ensure the alien race dies once and for all. The facility closes down, the dawn of a new day. The music which gives a feeling of tragedy and victory, as we close on Ripley's log from the end of Alien with the line, signing off. Hindsight's a bitch, ain't it?
Once again, the film's dark tone is shown. We've seen characters we actually like die when we didn't expect it, but this is a cherry on top. We've been with Ripley for all 3 films, and during them we have seen her survive through so much that you thought she would have found a way to exterminate the creature before it hatched through her body.
I really enjoyed this film. Is it as good as its predecessors? No, but a film should stand on its own merits, and this one does. It raises some interesting ideas, and doesn't feel like it's rehashing any of the previous films, and does a good job of bringing Ripley's story to an apparent end. Sure, I felt that most of the cast was undeveloped, and despite some minor stupidity from Ripley early on, considering the problems behind the camera, this film could have been much, much worse. It shows Fincher's strength as a director, that he could pull it off as well as he did. And thank God he went on to much better things.
David Fincher is one of my favourite directors, and a couple of his films are even in my top 10 list. But this isn't one of them. It's clear Fincher wanted to make a decent movie, and it's a shame that the studio wouldn't let him do the film he set out to do. Alien 3 for me is his worst picture, but it's definitely not as bad as fans make it out to be. There are some really interesting ideas put into this film. It's flawed with some bad effects, not well developed characters, and a hit and miss script, but it's still enjoyable. The darker approach, Ripley having an alien side of her, and having its completely new setting brought something new to the Alien series. If they ended it here, it could have been a good way to end the whole franchise, but of course they didn't.
This film had a lot to live up to with the success of the first 2 films. Aliens raised the stakes by bringing in more creatures and to introduce the alien queen. I think the third installment had a problem of trying to top that, but like many third installments in the series, it just couldn't. So take from this what you will and judge for yourself.
In the meantime, this is Chris and Matt signing off.
And during my first residency, I did a 36-hour stretch on an ER. So I went out and I got more than a little drunk. Then I got called back.
You're accelerating his death! It's not. Stop!